We are live. We are live.
Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Good morning, Brain, and good morning to everyone who is going to watch us live and will watch us recorded later. If
Yes.
by
Good
chance you
morning.
are here,
Yeah.
oh yes. How are you, Syl?
I'm good. I'm good, Beena. I'm happy. I'm happy we here again.
Oh
We
yes.
skipped a couple of days and we didn't mean to. We tried all sorts of stuff happened. So, it's just the way things go. We do
Oh
try.
yes.
We do try. Oh, oh,
Yes.
oh, one more place to go live. Hang on, Beena. Hang on 1 second. One
Yes.
second.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We
Yes.
have to
Yes.
go live on TikTok. Go live on TikTok.
Okay, so all sort of wonderful things like, okay, yes, we are using multiple social media platforms. It is to be available. And this is one of the
Yes. Yes.
okay, few lessons I got from my friends. And they says that, okay, you can't do more than that by just be available
Yeah.
at the right
Yeah.
point where you want
Exactly.
to be, what you want to do.
Exactly.
Just
Exactly.
be present at the relevant place. That's it. Or
Yes.
everything
Yes.
else
Yes.
will come out of attunement, and of course, it will come with the flow and whatever you want to, the way you
Yeah.
want to say that from the universe. And yes, it happened. So just be available, and this is what we are doing. It's not like we have to do like, okay, really push ourselves. We can do this. Okay, of course, there are many ways to maximize your reach, and at some point we are going to use that too. But right now we are not doing anything. It is just being present, being available, because nowadays the generation gap is shifting towards application gap, because some people are using, okay, Facebook, and another generation came and they start using different apps and Instagram, and now the other generation start come,
Yeah.
and then they are using TikTok, and of course some other apps will come in future. So the generation gap is just now becoming application gap, and we want to bridge that gap, like we all were trying to bridge the generation gap. So it applies the same, of course, discernment and same compassion towards that also. And again, what's the point of sharing if you are not available? If I'm just in my
Yeah.
bubble, I'm happy, and of course we were happy, and we are happy, very happy. But it was not actually aligning completely with the concept of capital S sharing. If you have to and if you want to do capital S sharing, you have to be available, reachable, accessible, so people can
Yeah.
utilize it. And this is what we are doing. We are just a medium here. We are sharing what is coming from, of course, Vienna, and of course,
Yeah.
new novels and many others. Okay, so while Sil is busy doing all these things, so just a thought of the day is thinking about things in more depth makes you creative. Like if you understand the difference between lovable and likable. That was really my aha moment at the time when I was like,
Oh.
wow, okay, yes, now I understand. And of course, it is a lot of details involved into that, okay, to be likable and to be lovable by others. But to be likable and lovable for yourself, from yourself, with yourself, is a big, huge deal.
Oh
We
yeah. Oh yeah.
continuously
Oh yeah.
we do continuously working on ourselves, that, oh yes, we need to love ourselves, and of course self-love is so important and all that. But do we really like ourselves? That's the problem. Love is innate. Okay, it can materialize projected in different way, completely different opposite ways, but the love innately, all beings carry within themselves. But liking ourselves is a different thing, because we all have certain ideas, certain standard of liking something or someone, and unfortunately mostly we don't qualify for that, and that's why we don't like ourselves. And what happens when we don't like ourselves? Then again, the guilt and the regret and the accusations and the blaming and shying away from being available, being accessible, all sort of things happen. And we just say, oh, I don't like to be there, because we don't like ourselves. We don't feel that our skills right now, our abilities, my potential is enough to like. And if I don't like myself, how can others like going to like myself? Big deal. So this is something, yes, when you are reminding yourself about self-love, like, because I know that, okay, it's a buzzword, it's a in thing, everyone talks about self-love. When you are doing it, please do like
Yeah,
yourself, and
yeah,
make some routine. If you have some rituals, or if you have some routine, if you have anything like journaling, or like, okay, writing down your affirmations and confirmations, and self-talk, please do pay attention to that. Do you really like yourself? This is the start.
yes,
Do so.
yes, yes. And well, just a quick
Yes.
comment. I'll comment on liking yourself because it's something very important with liking yourself. But a quick comment on your availability. Don Juan
Yes.
says a warrior, we would say a spirit warrior, has to be make themselves available and unavailable at the precise turn in the road. So
Wow.
it's not. It's a very crucial skill, and in our dictionary of power, we've got availability and unavailability, which means you have to be judicious, you have to be discerning, you have to be strategic and choose precisely when to make yourself available and when not to make yourself, right?
Wow. Wow.
Very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that goes into connecting to opportunity. Yeah. You can't always
Yes.
be available. You'll drain your energy. And when you need to be available, you need to have your energy in
Oh, please
command,
say it
right? You
again.
need to be in command of it.
Please say it again.
Spirit warrior
No, no, no,
needs
no.
to
About
be
like, okay, being available all the time.
oh. So you need to have your energy at use. If you are available all the time, you're going to be draining your energy. If you're unavailable all the time, you will never connect to any opportunity or connect to anything, right? You'll just be
Mm.
unavailable, right? And nobody will be able to connect to you. So you have to choose those times when you are available and unavailable, right? This is very, very important. And also, from the flip side, we need to respect availability and unavailability of others. Yeah. All right,
Mm.
like now we're available, and now it's appropriate, and it's a good time to connect, ask questions, interact, whatever. But when we're not publicly available, like some people, they with celebrities, they come and hassle them at home and all that. They're unavailable. They didn't make this available to you, right? So understand availability and unavailability both internally and with others. It's very, very important. All right. Now you were saying about liking yourself. Very important comment for me. Yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
see this all the time in people that, all the people over the years that I've dealt with, and, part of coaching and the programs and all this, that the standards they apply to liking themselves are not the same standards they apply to liking others.
Mm.
Think about that for a second. Take somebody you like. Okay. Beena, do you like
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Do you apply the same standards to me that you do to yourself when it comes to liking?
I do.
You do? Oh, then it's a
Yes.
bad example. There,
Yes.
there goes my example. But I'm trying to make the point is, okay, that's a very bad example. I thought maybe you're going to say, well, no, I tolerate some things from you that I wouldn't tolerate in myself. That's what I was expecting, but okay.
So if
But
if
when
I
I,
don't tolerate anything in my in any other person, I don't tolerate it from myself also, unless or
oh,
until
wow.
I'm not
Beena,
aware of
Beena
it.
has very high criteria. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. Well,
Unless or
my,
until
my
I'm not
point,
aware of it. So I might
yeah.
be completely
Okay.
unaware of it. That's
Well,
the
well,
simple.
my point is that I'm like many people, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to accept things in them that I absolutely do not accept in myself. So I'm trying to
Wow.
say that we tend to have a much higher standard for liking ourselves. But just because I don't, have those things and I'm working on them, doesn't mean I can't like myself. I can, even though I have things to work on, and high standards, etc. It doesn't mean I can't like myself, right? I can. We just have
This
to make that
okay.
adjustment to
Okay.
to to make
Yes.
the differentiation, right, between our what we want to be and what we are not yet. In other words, we have to say, I can like myself even though I'm not yet what I wish to be.
Okay.
Yeah?
There
It
is
doesn't
one
mean
thing.
I'm not going to stop.
yes, there is one thing, because that's the
Hmm.
problem with that. That's it's a false idea. We all okay. At least this is according
Exactly.
for
Exactly.
me. This is a false idea that when we say that okay, oh, I love someone, or I love something, or I like
Yeah.
something or someone, we take it as an absolute, like really in
Exactly.
totality, 100%.
Exactly.
We assume that, but it of course it goes with the ratio also, like with the proportion that okay, how
Right.
much
Right.
I
Right.
like something or someone, and okay, if they have something, do they have a margin from my side to be a human? Okay, because I always give my margin to myself. So
Exactly.
this
And
is
we don't do it to ourselves.
yes, yes. So this is something like okay, we assume that okay, when I say something like okay, oh, I like this, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to dislike it if something happened to it, like something is going to change.
Right.
Like I
Right.
like the cake,
Right.
but I'm not going to like it later when it's stale.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Or
know it's peculiar.
yes,
Right.
exactly.
We have these vastly different standards for liking others than we do for ourselves.
Yes,
We sort of say, well, we have to be perfect before I can like myself. Come
yeah,
on. Really?
exactly.
Really? But on there's
We
another
should.
side to it. But there's
Mhm.
another side to it. We're also afraid that if I like myself and I'm not at my high standard, that I'll stop making an effort to get to that high standard. Really? You really think
This
that's
is
so?
coming from a really discerning person, really thorough person. But
Yeah, yeah,
usually
yeah,
this is the problem that okay, we have a very high criteria. Why we have a criteria, at least what I understand, is that because we know ourselves from inside out, but we see other people from outside. So we assume that okay, if someone
exactly,
is just being very thorough, being
exactly.
very polite, very nice, very gentle, and of course very talented, so all sort of all the superlatives and all these things, we don't
Yeah,
see their inner. So we assume that okay, this is how the things are. Like okay, watching a movie exactly like that. But because we know ourselves, when I'm doing something like being generous, if something is not innate to you, you know that okay, I was not very happy to do this, but I still doing that. Not being so happy and being uncomfortable with sharing and being generous and doing some charity or something, I will not pay attention to that. Okay, even though it was not innate to me, I was doing that, and we will not focus on that, but we will focus on that,
yeah,
oh, I was not comfortable, so it was like yes, I was pressurized by some good ideas and bookish ideas and all sort of things. This is how we judge, as this is what you were saying, that okay, we judge, we have very high
exactly.
standards. The problem is that because we
We,
know our intent also, we don't know other people's
yeah,
intent, we can just
yeah.
assume.
And yes, that's the point that I wanted to make now. Yes,
Yes, yes.
at least. Well, finish your point. Finish your point about intent.
No, no, it's done. Please continue.
Oh, all right. So I'm saying that. Well, at least for me, when I look at people, I see all sorts of behavior. Now, all right, maybe, I've practiced understanding and knowing people and been able to discern them and all my life. I mean, from when I was very young. So I see all of people. And at some point, that got to be very negative in my life. And then I said, no, I've got to switch and I've got to take the positive and look only for no matter how small it is, I got to find the good in them and make that the all and de emphasize the negative. Right. But yes, the key point. So now, over the years, when I like somebody, I don't like you because of your skills, your abilities, your accomplishments, your status. None of that counts to me. What matters whether I like you is your intent. Yeah? And I can see intent. I can perceive intent. Anybody can if you just make the
Is
effort to
this
do so.
isn't
Right?
it
But
not
hang on.
liking or but just loving?
Well, it's both. It's both now. It's both. It's both. But I'm saying I like and love. And I can love you and not like you. Yes. But I'm saying is I like you because not only your intent. All right. Some people have good intent, but they aren't very likable. Why? Because they're miserable, they're crotchety, and okay, I can love you. I understand why you're miserable and you're crotchety and irritated or mean or whatever. Right? And I can look past that. Liking is when you've got pleasant personality traits, right? You're friendly,
Yes.
you're happy, right? But again, it's got nothing to do with your accomplishments or your abilities. It's just got to do with how you interact. So being likable is really just being positive and friendly. That's really what makes us likable. Yeah. And when you
Uh,
add good intent to that, it's very
okay.
easy. So hang on. My point that I'm getting to is when
Yeah.
we apply this criteria to ourselves, why would you not like yourself then?
Yeah, because
Because,
again, coming.
because, Beena, when we apply it to ourselves, we're already familiar with our friendliness and that, and it's not new, it's not different. So I guess we're just bored with ourselves. Maybe that's why we don't like us.
I think that because we know that okay ourselves from inside out, and having the slightest idea that oh yes, I was trying to do some business, and someone just having okay very good business transaction with me, and they assume of course, or their perception about me is that okay, I'm a very polite person, I'm very generous, I'm very kind, I'm very thorough, and all sort of things. What I was doing at that time, my basic primary intent was just to do good business, and when they will cheer it, like they will really appreciate me, my inner self, my inner bureaucrat will say that okay, you were doing a business, good business, yes, it is good, but you were not being like okay, yes, just to like really pamper them and all sort of things. So we don't acknowledge them 100% because we my intent was that. So for me it is because we know our intent, of course, who knows more than ourselves, better than us. So that's why we get like really critical with ourselves and really strict and judgmental, which is not a bad thing, but also we need to focus on. That's why, from Way of Impeccability, the concept of self honesty, not more, not less, just having a
Absolutely.
precise idea about
Absolutely.
yourself, and
Absolutely.
and
Crucial. Crucial.
completely,
Crucial. Yeah.
yes, and be completely disconnected from like oh this is me and this is you and all that.
Yeah.
That's why it is so important
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
self
And
honesty, because we assume
yeah.
that oh,
Yeah.
if I have something
Exactly.
wrong then I have to be honest. No, you have to be
All right. I'll be
really
back in
with
one
yourself.
second, Bina. I'll be back in 1 second. So I can't hear
Yes.
you because I have to take the headset off. I'll be back in a
Okay.
second.
Okay. Okay. So we assume that okay, honesty we need honesty when we have something really bad, or not even just okay strongly bad, but just bad, not so nice, not so good. So we have to acknowledge that oh this is something you need to work. But we completely forget the other part. We have to be very 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 self honest also when we have something good and positive. How can we not be? Because it's our ego, it's our pride that oh, and it's also our rigidness that oh yes, this is my thing, so I'm going to decide my rules and my self honesty, where to apply and where to not. That's the idea we have, and we need to work on that. This is what I was saying. Again, coming back to being likable, we can love someone really, and of course we do love, but their way of eating, the way they smell, the way they walk, talk, or something very trivial, their hairstyle, or anything like okay, we can not like them. It is something like, oh, I don't like this because it is not getting aligned. These are all superficial things. I'm not advocating that okay, we have to be like this, but I'm just saying that this is the reality that how we like other people also, as Syl mentioned about being positive. Yes,
Oh,
of course people like them, but it is more than that. The
I'm
superficial
back, Bina.
things count really really highly in the likingness, that okay, oh I yes, I really
Yes.
love that person, but the way they talk is something no, okay, so I love them but I don't like them. Okay, or the way they walk, or some
Exactly.
trivial things, like the way they smell and all
Right.
sort of
Right.
things.
Right.
It counts. Liking is a very
Yeah.
different thing than love. And why I
Loving.
always
Oh, yeah.
emphasize on that, because having this understanding of a difference between liking actually enables us to understand more about love.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever
Very
is not
important.
liking is loving.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Very, very important. Very important.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so what we are going to do today, so please.
Wow, we're going to continue our reading of Carlos. Let's go straight there, Beena. Let's go straight there. I want to say hello to everybody on TikTok. Welcome, everybody. We're always happy to see you guys here. It's very cool. And also, while I do screen share and pull this up, what's very important, by the way, is comment. Ask questions, make comments, tell us what you think. We like to hear. And again, a part of this whole liking and disliking ourselves is to get out of that mindset. It's not either like or dislike. You can focus on understanding. Then you can decide how you want to react to it. But if we only think like and dislike as binary, as options, as opposites, we miss out on understanding. When you focus on understanding, it changes everything. Think of your comments that you're going to make. If you share your understanding and you say, "Oh, let me see, if I understand you correctly, you're saying this, this, and this," you're checking your understanding. Or you could say, "In my understanding, it's this way." Now you're not disagreeing or agreeing, right? So
Yes.
we don't care about agree, disagree, and likewise with like or dislike. Look to understand, look to appreciate. I can appreciate somebody without liking or disliking them. Yeah, very
Hmm.
powerful. Very, very powerful.
Okay, I do
So
pay
when we
attention
shift,
to liking and loving, because I do pay attention. Yes.
right, right. But for me, I shifted to appreciation. I don't really care about liking. Loving, well, I try and love everybody. I try, that's just part of how my whole being is, right? But appreciation, when you appreciate, I appreciate that you're a jackass because of this and this and this and this. I get it. I understand it. Okay, I can also say, I appreciate that you don't need to be this way, that you're being this way for crappy reasons. It's understanding. Yeah? But when I shift that to positive appreciation, I appreciate the effort you're making. It may be a misguided effort. I mean, some people try really hard to be friendly and they're making an effort that's misguided, inappropriate application of goodness. See, I'm appreciating your inappropriate application of goodness. Incredibly powerful. It allows you to really enjoy people, no matter even if they are being foolish or silly or inappropriate or whatever. It's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. But the key point here is we got to apply this to ourselves also. And part of our not liking ourselves because we're afraid to be vain. That's where the self-honesty comes into it. I'm likable because I'm friendly. I'm likable because I'm nice. I'm likable because I'm good. I make an effort to be good. That's it. I take an interest in you. I'm very interested in people. What more is there to liking people? So, this is it. I've got to like myself. Now, here's the key question, and I've asked you this question before, being a long time ago. We had deep discussions on this. Very wonderful question. If if I were to go to the cloning factory and say, "Okay, make me a clone of Beena," and I say, "Oh, here we go, Beena. Here's your present for this year, your birthday present. I made you a clone of yourself." Would you hang out with your own clone?
Okay, this question is
And would you
a
like
bit.
that clone?
Okay, this is something. It's a question a bit vague, because having a friend is something we look for, that okay, which gives you something different, which provides you something different than you. Okay, so that's why
Yeah.
this question is a bit difficult for me to answer. But as a friend, like, okay, yes, I would love to be, because this is something I can say proudly, very openly, that I'm a very good friend, very
There
very
you
good
go.
friend.
Same here.
I'm
Me
a
too.
very
I'm an
loyal
excellent
friend,
friend.
and I'm a very
Yeah,
good
same here.
friend.
And
Okay,
it's
and
true, but Beena, I can attest to this. Beena is a phenomenal friend.
yes, this is something I
Yeah.
can say
All
about
right. So
myself.
Beena,
But
when
but
you when
having a
you when you
clone is
watch,
quite boring for me.
yeah, I know, because you might know what you're gonna say. So yeah, okay, but
Exactly.
still, all right. So when you watch a recording of one of our lives, right, and you're watching yourself, well, I find I'm very highly critical. But if I turn off but now can I do better? And that's a critical thing. If I turn off my criticalness and say, well, do I like this person on the show? And I make myself a third person, right? Sure, I'm likable, you know. without being vain. Why shouldn't I be likable? See, it's not about whether I am likable. Rather ask the question in the negative. Why would I not be likable? Right? No
Ah,
reason. See, when I put the positive reasons, then I feel a bit vain. But when I do it in the reverse, and I say, well, why would I not be likable? Oh, now I have no reasons. Okay, so I don't have to necessarily think of myself as specifically likable, but I can think of myself as not unlikable, which kind of makes me likable. See? So sometimes we have to use a bit of strategy with ourselves because we have
yes,
inside our build, we have artificial criteria, like our fear of vanity. But this has been pumped into us since we've been young. But if we're self-honest, though, we have to learn to understand that, hey, if I can appreciate myself honestly, I'm not being vain. It's as simple as that. So the ways to do things, and that's very cool. It's very, very cool. So all I'm saying is that shift your criteria slightly when it comes to liking yourself. Yeah? And then by implication also loving yourself. Because we apply different standards to ourselves than we do to others. Right? To sum it up. Yeah? Beena?
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, here we go. Here we go. This is where we left off last time. We're in the process of Carlos wanting to learn to perceive, capital P, perceive, which is to perceive the essence of things, to perceive energy directly. Yes? And Don Juan says to him, in order to do this, he has to smoke the little smoke again. Because Carlos is a peculiar fellow and he's got all sorts of issues and stuff going on with him, so he needs a bit more than most, right? And that will come out later in the book. We'll get to know about this. Don Juan will elaborate on this much later not in this book, in the series, I should say. For now, Carlos is is a peculiarly plugged up fool, in Don Juan's words, right? And he says this directly even to poor Carlos. Anyway, so now he needs to do the smoke to get him. And he's already smoked now, and he saw the Guardian, and he's going over this. And when the second time, he didn't get to do anything because he got all caught up in talking, right, and getting up and down. So this is a discussion. They takeaway discussion on this, right? So November 12, 1968. Can you read, Beena?
Okay, yes. November 12, 1968. This morning, Don Juan and I went to the nearby hills and to collect plants. We walked about 6 miles on extremely rough terrain. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. I became very tired. We sat down to rest at my initiative, and he began a conversation, saying that he was pleased with my progress. I know now that it was I who talked, I said, but at that time I could have sworn it was someone else.
It was you, of course.
How come I couldn't recognize myself?
That's what the little smoke does. One can talk and not notice it. Or one can move thousands of miles and not notice that either. That's also how one can go through things. The little smoke removes the body, and one is free like the wind, better than the wind. The wind can be stopped by a rock or a wall or a mountain. The little smoke makes one as free as the air, perhaps even freer. The air can be locked in a tomb and become stale, but with the aid of the little smoke, one cannot be stopped or locked in. And a
And what
comment
is
here, I
that?
would say the little smoke reduces you to being pure intent.
Hmm,
Carlos
interesting.
intended to talk, he talked. He intended to get up, he got up. He intended to go down, he went down. Pure intent. No limitations to your intent. If you intend to go to the other side of the world, boom, you're there. Hmm? Very powerful. Very powerful.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Don Juan's words unleashed a mixture of euphoria and doubt. I felt an overwhelming uneasiness, a sensation of undefined guilt. That one can really do all those things, Don Juan?
What do you think? You would rather think you're crazy, wouldn't you?
He said cuttingly. Well, well, it's easy for you to accept all those things. For me, it's impossible.
It's not easy for me. I don't have any more privileges than you. Those things are equally hard for you or for me or for anyone else to accept.
But you are at home with all this, Don Juan.
Yeah, and this is again, pay attention to Carlos and his assumptions. Remember, I said in the um, when we came up with the enemies of knowledge, and I expanded the enemies of knowledge, right? Don Juan's enemies knowledge are fear, clarity, power, and old age. Yeah, and I expanded that somewhat. I'm trying to find. Here we go. Right. So the enemies of awareness for me. So see, and I switched it. Don Juan said the enemies of a man of knowledge. Well, I would change that to personal knowledge, but I rather shifted it to, because the concept of a person of knowledge, it's problematic. It gets you into that intellectual thing, and no, that's not what we want. So I rather say the enemies of awareness for me are fear, sadness, anger, self-importance, clarity, power, and assumption. Let me read that again. The
Yes.
enemies of awareness: fear, sadness, anger, self-importance, clarity, power, and assumption. Now, you might say, well, anger is really fear. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yes.
again,
It
not
is.
necessarily. Not necessarily. Because, and you might say anger is also connected to sadness, but I separate them because they are very distinct in how they materialize. Typically anger is your goodness not being able to be satisfied. You're frustrated that things aren't right, they aren't good, they aren't the way they're supposed to be, should be, etc. And that makes you angry because you want to see things better. So anger becomes a consequence of your goodness, inappropriate expression of goodness, right? Inappropriate application of goodness. And sadness is just a force in the world. Don Juan even says so himself, right? So when we understand this, but you can't let sadness get you. Sadness isn't a fear. It has nothing to do with fear. It's just the reality of it, right? But you can easily fall into sadness and being consumed by that. Very, very easy. And self-importance is obvious, right? This is, again, is it fear? Is it clarity? No, it's something separate. And Don Juan, again, also points this out with self-importance being this great point, right? So for me, I just like a little bit more specificity. But look at what I replaced old age with: assumption. To me, I really do believe old age is an assumption. But that's not the only reason that I'm putting assumption in there. Assumption is a massive, massive enemy. And your clarity even can lead you to this. So we have to always be careful with assumption, because clarity is what you already know. Assumption is about what you do not yet know. Yeah. And what you are unable, no matter how clear you are, you cannot perceive something. So your clarity is of no use to when it comes to the future. So we need to make assumptions. When we're dealing with the unknown, we need to make assumptions, but we need to make strategic assumptions. And again, look at this assumption that Carlos is making. Don Juan has been doing this, for a long time, been involved in this. But he assumes that it's now easy for Don Juan because he's learned to make it easy. It's a really, really horrible assumption. I mean, this is, come on, Carlos. You don't know what it was like for Don Juan when he started. Right? And we are later in the books, we are going to hear about Don Juan's journey when he was an apprentice. It was certainly not easy for him either, right? I mean, Don Juan was a knucklehead. He was a laborer. His own admission, yeah, according to Don Juan, right? He didn't know anything. He was ignorant. He was just in a bubble, right? So this is, let's read this, right? But he says, Carlos says, but you're at home with all this, Don Juan. Yes, but it cost me plenty. I had to struggle, perhaps more than you ever will. You have a baffling way of getting everything to work for you. You have no idea how hard I had to toil to do what you did yesterday. You have something that helps you every inch of the way. There is no other possible explanation for the manner in which you learn about the powers. You did it before with Mescalito. Now you have done it with a little smoke. You should concentrate on the fact that you have a great gift and leave other considerations on the side. Now, this assistance is the assistance from the universe. Why? Because it's to get the story shared. Everything, when you understand everything in the context of the grand attunement and the intent of the universe is the enhancement and development of awareness, right? And Carlos is the mechanism. Before the 60s, all of this was not possible to be shared. I mean, technically, yes, Carlos could have gone before in the 50s or the 40s. Somebody could have done this, and likely they did, maybe. And they wrote the similar stuff and published it, and they got locked up for devil worship and God knows whatever. Or the books just never saw the light of day, never became popular, right? So the world evolves, and it evolves slowly. So things have to find their right timing. In the entirety of attunement, that time was the appropriate time for this to come out and get into the mainstream. Where now, once it becomes mainstream, even though it's sort of faded, it's available. You can go and find it and search it. You'll find it in libraries, blah, 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 right? Was not available before then. I remember, even though some of the books just came out slightly before my time, I was very young, but I remember the age, the era, just slightly afterwards. But where I was, things were a little bit behind anyway. So none of this was available. I saw it become available in the bookshelf, the self-help section, right? And Carlos initially wasn't even on the self-help. He was in the anthropology section. And then later he got moved to the self-help section. Philosophy or whatever, spirituality, Indian studies. He's been in every section you can imagine, which again, the universe helping to spread this. Yeah, important information. But there's also a test here, a test to see if you're going to be all excited about it because it's about drugs, which was in the 60s. That's what made it popular, and later too. The drug culture, a lot of allure to it. Even today, it's a lot of mystique and allure to spiritual drugs. But if you can see past that and say, man, what this is really about is enhancement and development of awareness. You learn to need to be discerning. You need to learn to be judicious when it comes to drugs and power plants and all this, right? You have to really pay attention here, and then you find the real value. And then you see the absolute grand magic, awesomeness, the brilliance of the entirety. And you see how all of these factors, Carlos's peculiar knuckleheadedness, his peculiar plugged upness, his peculiarity of wanting to know things in a particular way, and all of his peculiarities, we start to see it as necessary. And then we see this help that he gets also as necessary. Because if we had to sit through Carlos doing this stuff for years on end, that would make a very boring story. See? All works. See the bigger picture, overview perspectives in our dictionary of power. Very, 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 very important. Super critical. Yeah? Make sense, Beena? All right. Let's continue, right?
Yes.
You should concentrate on the fact that you have a great gift and leave other considerations on the side.
You make it sound so easy, but it isn't. Okay, this was his Don Juan.
Yeah, this is Carlos. Right. This is Carlos. Yeah.
Okay. You make it sound so easy, but it isn't. I'm torn inside.
You'll be in one piece again soon enough. You have not taken care of your body, for one thing. You're too fat. I love Don Juan's directness, right? He's like, but he's because understand this, right? Intent. Don Juan can say this is just a fact. He's not trying to put down Carlos. He's not operating in the typical superiority paradigm hierarchy. He's not trying to be nasty or mean or pull Carlos down or push him down. He's just saying a fact, right? You have not taken care of your body, for one thing. You're too fat. I didn't want to say anything to you before. You must always let others do what they have to do. You were away for years. I told you that you would come back, though, and you did. Same thing happened to me. I quit for 5.5 years instead of just 2. I'm sorry, that's me saying instead of. I quit for 5.5 years.
Why did you stay away? Okay, Don Juan. It sounds a bit redundant, but I'm going to say, why did you stay away, Don Juan?
It's Carlos's politeness.
Okay.
To use somebody's name. I have this too. It's part of how I do, right? So It's just he uses Don Juan because he would feel a bit impolite, because Don Juan is in a whole different realm. It's like a child speaking to an adult, right? If you don't say teacher or Miss Jones or whatever the teacher's name is, right? You can get into trouble. Be polite, right? So that's why the name is there, right? So read it again in that context, right? Like it's
Okay.
like a kid saying
Okay.
to a school teacher. Yeah?
Okay. Why did you stay away, Don Juan?
For the same reason you did. I didn't like it.
Why did you come back?
For the same reason you have come back yourself. Because there is no other way to know. For the same
That
reason
statement.
you have come back yourself. I want to read it again. It's very important. Because there is no other way to know. There is not. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That statement had a great impact on me, for I had found myself thinking that perhaps there was no other way to live. I had never voiced this thought to anyone, yet Don Juan had surmised it correctly,
Yeah,
summarized
surmised
it
it.
correctly.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
surmised it correctly.
surmised it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Not summarized. It's a little different.
Yes.
Surmise is when you kind of figure it out, right? You're putting it
Okay.
together. You're making a summary, but it's a summary that's not the usual summary because you're adding, you're figuring it
Yes.
out, you're putting your
Okay.
thoughts to it. So surmise.
Okay. Okay. Don Juan had surmised it correctly. After a very long silence, I asked him, "What did I do yesterday, Don Juan?"
You got up when you wanted to.
But I don't know how I did that.
It takes time to perfect that technique. The important thing, however, is that you know how to do it. Now this
But
is very key here, right? So right here, hang
yes.
on. I want to really emphasize some important things here. Very, very important. Right? Now, when we talk about Way of Impeccability, the alternative name for Way of Impeccability, which is a collection of tools for deliberate living, self-evident
Yes.
sensibilities. It's not a thing that you follow. But the alternative name for it is those self-evident sensibilities is the language of conceptionality. And it makes
Yes.
all of the difference. All of the difference, right? It's a huge deal. Very, very huge deal. And this is somewhat of the trouble that Carlos has with Don Juan and Don Juan with Carlos communication.
Mm.
Yeah, you got up
Mm.
when you wanted to. Let's put this in language of conceptionality. All right, you start again with a question there, please, Beena.
Okay. Okay. But o- but I don't know
No,
how
what
I
did I
did
do?
that.
No, the
Okay.
very top.
Okay. What did I do yesterday, Don Juan?
You intended to get up, and thus you did.
But I don't know how I
Now
did.
you see. What does it matter? You intended it. There's
Yes.
no there's no knowing how you did. You don't need to know how you did. Intent isn't. The question becomes redundant. Would you even ask that question if it had been with intent? Of course, you know how to do it. You set the intent and you do it. It's very simple. It's not about wanting, not about liking, desiring. It's about intending, which is something that comes from deep inside you, right? And you
Yes.
intended, think back to when you did this, right? Now I'm talking to Carlos. So, Carlos, think back to the moment that you intended to get up. It was something that is beyond want or desire. Because when you're lying there and, oh, I want to get up, you're not you're not saying I'm committed to getting up. This is right. It's just a thing that's you thinking about what you future. And intent brings that want and that desire into your entirety of your being to say this is something that I don't want just want it to happen in the future. I want it to be happening now. And I'm very serious about this. I'm committed to it and I'm going to make it happen. Your body gets involved, right? And the intent takes the entirety of all of you. It's a commitment, a very sober, serious commitment, right? So you intend it, it's like willing it, right? It's the very same. You could say there, but you willed yourself to get up instead of intending, which is probably a little bit more accurate. But we can use both because they are part of the same thing. In this case, will yourself to get up is actually much more accurate. But now the whole thing starts to make more sense, right? And then Carlos might say, but I didn't know I did that. It takes time to perfect that technique. Yes, it just takes practice because you have to attune to what it is that really, really matters to you. Intent and will. You cannot do it if there's something that you are doing for idiotic reasons. Yeah, it won't work. Your inner self, your inner bureaucrats, your inner protection side will say, you're doing this for nonsense reasons. You're wasting this precious power because will and intent takes a lot of power on foolishness, and it's just going to come back and bite you later on. So you can't go wasting your power. Hence, if you want to use will and intent, first, you need to have impeccability. It's like capital T trust. Capital T trust will not happen unless you first are impeccable. It's based on that foundation. Why? Because impeccability makes sure that your motivations are impeccable. That's really what it's about. When your motivations are impeccable, your intents become impeccable. You don't go squandering and wasting your power, which is what impeccability is. Best use of energy. See? So now, when you say, do I need to get up? Do I want to get up? It becomes, is this appropriate? Capital A, appropriate. Is this the right thing to do? Yes, of course. I need to get up. It's very simple. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Well, I need to get up. And so it becomes very simple. I mean, very simple things can be very trivial, but they can still be necessary. I need to get up because, well, I can't see from down here, right? Very simple. But there needs to be a legitimate justification for the behavior. That's what impeccability is. No matter how trivial it is, I want to see. My justification is I want to see what's going on. Okay, that's fair enough. But see, it's why. If I want to get up, well, just to show how clever I am that I can get up. Nope, sorry. No good. See? And we don't even know sometimes what our motivations are. We have these trivial, petty, idiotic, self-importance, superiority paradigm motivations that can corrupt us. And that's why our will and our intent doesn't always work for us. But when your motivations are pure, when they're impeccable, will and intent is there for you to utilize, right? So now, when we really understand this, changes the whole dynamic. Yeah. And we're going to see this later on when Carlos encounters the guardian again, right? Where he needs to use his will to get out of the way. Yeah? All right, get to that. It takes time to perfect that technique. The important thing, however, is that you know how to do it. It's Carlos, Beena.
Sorry, I was muted. So okay. So please, please put the cursor.
It takes time to perfect.
No,
that
your sound.
The important thing. Oh, holy moly! What's going on with us and sound today?
Now it's back. Now it's back. Yes.
Oh, okay. It takes time to perfect that technique. The important thing, however, is that you know how to do it.
But I don't. That's the point. I really don't.
Of course you do.
Don Juan, I assure you, I swear to you, he did not let me finish. He got up and walked away. Later on.
All right, so for me, the understanding here, Beena, 1 second. We'll get to the next point. The key point is Carlos here again, language of conceptionality. When we understand conceptionality, the problem for Carlos is in how he conceives and conceptualizes this term no. For Carlos, no is intellectual. For Don Juan, no is physical, corporeal, bodily. You did it, so you know how to do it. But Carlos, really, accuracy of communication. I don't know how to access that knowing. At least not in my mind. Then Don Juan could come back and say, you don't need to know intellectually. All you need to know is that you actually do possess the ability. And to capital T, trust that when you need it again, it will be there. That's all you can do at this point in time. Because you haven't had enough time to practice it to give yourself familiarity so that you feel that you know it. That's all that practice is. We already know it. Practice just makes us more comfortable and gives us that feedback, that proof that we know it. And oh, okay. And that's what our mind says. But if you've done it, you know it. Yeah. So the knowing and feeling that you're knowing, believing that you know, and being comfortable with the knowing are two different things. Again, capital discernment that gets applied. See how crucial these conceptions are. They are crucial, right? So this lack of discernment here is what's getting Carlos into trouble, right? And he doesn't have this. That's why the language of conceptionality is so powerful, because it allows us to overcome these problems. Yes, and this, to me, this incident and many similar is what one of the major factors that assisted me in developing language of conceptionality. Because not only in this, but in everything that I came across, I saw that they're missing it. And I for me, when I read this, I stop until I figure it out. Like, how would this be resolved until there's resolution? And that's how language of conceptionality get to develop, because that is the toolbox that allows for resolution of these problems, right? I imagine myself to be both in Don Juan's shoes and Carlos's shoes, right? And you figure it out. All right.
He did not
Please
let me
continue there
finish.
from, yeah.
He did not let me finish. He got up and walked away. Later on, we talked again about the guardian of the other world. If I believe that whatever I have experienced is actually real, then the guardian is a gigantic creature that can cause unbelievable physical pain. And if I believe that one can actually travel enormous distances by an act of will, then it's logical to conclude that I could also will the monster to disappear. Is that correct?
Not exactly. You cannot will the guardian to disappear. Your will can stop it from harming you, though. Of course, if you ever accomplish that, the road is open to you. You can actually go by the guardian, and there's nothing that it can do, not even whirl around madly. All right, so this is very important to understand. And again, Carlos's conception. He's thinking that because you can use your will to go to the other end of the world, in his mind, again, superiority paradigm logic, oh, suddenly now I'm invincible. I'm now God. I can do everything. Who said that you can do anything because you can do something stupendous? Faulty thinking. Faulty thinking, yeah? You can use your will and your intent on anything where you're not affecting other things. In, like, when I move, it doesn't really make a difference to anything, right? Whether I'm here or there. If I was physically here or there, that may make a difference. But if I'm only there as a point of intent, as a point of awareness, doesn't make any difference to anything, right? Doesn't matter, right? And likewise, many of the things that you can do, but when you're starting to say, I want to will somebody else out of existence, this, the universe says no. How do you suddenly now get to be in charge of whether things exist or not, right? Little different. So when you understand that there are, but I can stop the thing from harming me. Why? Because that's about me now. See? Little different. Yeah? Does that make sense? The
Yes,
rules
yes,
of
it
the
does make.
universe.
Yes, it
Yeah,
does make
yeah.
sense.
Right. Now, let's say that you also have to understand the intent of the guardian. The guardian is guarding something where you can go if it's appropriate for you to go. So the guardian is not just a guardian in the sense that, like, well, it's a prison and it's guarding the prisoners from escaping, or you from going in there where you're not allowed to go because, well, you're not meant to be there for some reason. It's not that kind. The guardian is also a test to say, if you can overcome the guardian, then you have the appropriate beingness to go to where it's now getting past the guardian, right? So it's a test to say, are you at the sufficient level of development to go through, right? So when you understand the guardian in that sense, it makes total sense, right? Because if the guardian was guarding something that it was really inappropriate for you to go to, well, then it's legitimate for the guardian to hurt you if you're not listening. Right? You're just being stubborn and foolish and obstinate. Now it's legitimate for the guardian to injure you or even kill you. Right? See? It's all about understanding the intent behind the thing. When you understand the guardian's intent, then it all makes sense. Yeah? Make sense, Beena?
Yes,
All right.
yes. It does.
Very
Okay.
powerful. Very, very, very powerful. Very cool as well.
Okay, he did not let me finish. He got up and walked away. Later on, okay, we talked about again the guardian of the other world. Uh, if I believe that whatever I have experienced is actually real, then the guardian is a gigantic creature that can cause unbelievable physical pain. And if I believe that one can actually travel enormous distances by an act of will, then it's logical to conclude that I could also will the monster to disappear. Is it correct?
Not exactly. You cannot will the guardian to disappear. Your will can stop it from harming you, though. Of course, if you ever accomplish that, the road is open to you. You can actually go by the guardian, and there's nothing that it can do. Not even whirl around madly.
Can I accomplish that?
You already know how. All you need is practice.
I told him that we were having a misunderstanding that stemmed from our differences in perceiving the world. I said that for me to know something meant that I had to be fully aware of what I was doing and that I could repeat what I knew it will. But in this case, I was neither aware of what I had done under the influence of the smoke, nor could I repeat it if my life depended on it. Don Juan looked at me inquisitively. He seemed to be amused by what I was saying. He took off his hat and scratched his temples, as he does when he wants to pretend.
Yeah. You really know how to talk and say nothing, don't you? I have told you. You have to have an unbending intent in order to become a person of knowledge. But you seem to have an unbending intent to confuse yourself with riddles. You insist on explaining everything as if the whole world were composed of things that can be explained. Now you are confronted with the guardian and with the problem of moving by using your will. Has it ever occurred to you that only a few things in this world can be explained your way? Let me break here a little bit. Right?
Yes.
Carlos's way of explaining things is a detailed way, not a conceptualized way. Carlos wants the actual practical steps for some things like will, because they're outside of our typical language. We cannot use those exact steps. Like, okay, you pick up the screwdriver, you put the head into the slot on the screw, and then you turn it. That doesn't exist for will, but that's what Carlos wants. But conceptually, there is. And this is what the language of conceptionality is. It is a bridge into the abstract, the unknown, right? Because all we need to do is to conceptualize. When you can conceptualize, you start to create the thing. This is the word conception. It involves creation, right? So to conceptualize, it's not only about becoming aware, but you're creating the thing that you want to do and be aware of, right? So it's the creativity of creating is involved in that. Very important, very important. So in a sense, uh, Carlos can get what he wants, and also Don Juan, but because they're not, both of them don't have language of conceptionality at their disposal, they have this communication issue. Yeah, very important. All right. Has it occurred to you that only a few things in this world can be explained your way? When I say that the guardian is really blocking your passing and could actually knock the devil out of you, I know what I mean. When I say that one can move by one's will, I also know what I mean. I wanted to teach you little by little how to move. But then I realized that you know how to do it, even though you say you don't. Again, this entire problem is resolved with the appropriate language, right? You intended it, which is stronger than will here, because yes, you willed it, but will in typical English, especially Western world English, this concept of will has got somewhat corrupted because will is connected to ambition and all sorts of things. But intent and again, not you didn't have the intention, but you intended to do it. And when you understand the difference between intent and intention, I get it now. We do know things. We don't always know that we know it. And this is the beauty of the language of conceptuality. When you explain it and you go in detail, okay, yes. Oh, I see now why intent and intention are different. Yes, I do actually understand intent. Yes, now that you come to mention it, now that you say in this way, I realize, yes, I really did. In that moment, I truly intended to get up. It was deep in me. It wasn't just a want or a desire. It was an intent, which means there's action in the now associated with my want and desire. All connected, all together, right? So intent is very powerful. And I think this would have resolved it for Carl. I very much feel that, right? Right. But then I realized that you know how to do it, even though you say you don't.
But I really don't know how.
You do, you fool.
He said
It reminds me of the time when someone, okay, that's all right. It reminds me of the time when someone put that kid Julio on a harvesting machine. He knew how to run it, although he had never done it before.
I know what you mean, Don Juan. However, I still feel that I could not do it again because I'm not sure of what I did.
A phony sorcerer tries to explain everything in the world with explanations he's not sure about. And so everything is witchcraft. But then you know better. You also want to explain everything your way, but you're not sure of your explanations either. Right? So really, when we listen to Carlos, right, I still feel that I could not do it again because I'm not sure of what I did. Right? And that's a false association, a false logic from Carlos. Just because you're not sure of what you did doesn't mean you can't do it again. See? Yes, you're right. You might not be able to do it again. But based on what? There's equally as much chance that you will be able to do it again. You're assuming that because you don't know exactly how you did it, that you won't be able to do it again. But this is the magic of intent. Do you need to know? He's locked on this idea. I don't have the exact steps. You don't have to have the exact steps. All you have to do is the intent. Will you be able to have that intent again? Well, if the situation were the same, sure. See? Changes it. Language of conceptuality. Very, very, very important. Very, very important. All right. Where were we lost? Right? You also want to explain everything your way, but you're not sure of your explanations either.
Don Juan asked me abruptly if I was planning to leave for home during the weekend. I said I intended to leave Monday morning. We were sitting under his Ramada around midday on Saturday, January 18, 1969, taking a rest after a long walk in the nearby hills. Don Juan got up and went into the house. A few moments later, he called me inside. He was sitting in the middle of his room and had placed my straw mat in front of his. He motioned me to sit down, and without saying a word, he unwrapped his pipe, took it out of its sheath, filled its bowl with his smoking mixture, and lit it. He had even brought into his room a clay tray filled with small charcoals. He did not ask me whether I was willing to smoke. He just handed me the pipe and told me to puff. I did not hesitate. Don Juan had apparently assessed my mood correctly. My overwhelming curiosity about the guardian must have been obvious to him. I did not need any coaxing and eagerly smoked the entire bowl. The reaction I had, coaxing, and eagerly smoked the entire bowl. The reactions I had were identical to those I had had before. Don Juan also proceeded in very much the same manner. This time, however, instead of helping me to do it, he just told me to pop my right arm on the mat and lie down on my left side. He suggested that I should make a fist if that would give me a better leverage. I did make a fist with my right hand because I found it was easier than turning my palm against the floor. While lying with my weight on it, I was not sleepy. I felt very warm for a while. Then I lost all feeling. Don Juan lay down on his side facing me. His right forearm rested on his elbow and popped his head up like a pillow. Everything was perfectly placid, even my body, which by then lacked tactile sensations. I felt very content. It's nice. Don Juan got up hurriedly.
Don't you dare start with that crap. Don't talk. You'll waste every bit of energy talking, and then the Guardian will mash you down like it would smash a nut.
He must have thought,
No. Okay.
he must have thought his smile was funny because he began to laugh.
Simile,
But
simile, simile, simile.
okay,
I know there
his
should be an accent on the E. It should be pronounced smile, but
okay, his simile was funny, but because he began to laugh, but he stopped suddenly.
don't talk. Please don't talk.
He said with a serious look on his face, "I wasn't about to say anything, and I really don't want to say that." Don Juan got up. I saw him walking away toward the back of his house. A moment later, I noticed that a net had
Nat,
landed
Nat.
on my mat. Yes, net had landed on my mat, and that filled me with a kind of anxiety I had never experienced before. It was a mixture of elation, anguish, and fear. I was totally aware that something transcendental was about to unfold in front of me. A net was guarded the other world. It was a ludicrous thought. I felt like laughing out loud, but then I realized that my elation distracting distracting me, and I was going to miss a transition period I wanted to clarify. In my previous attempt to see the guardian, I had looked at the net first with my left eye, and then I felt that I had stood up and looked at it with both eyes. But I was not aware how that transition had occurred. I saw the I saw the net whirling around on the mat in front of my face and realized that I was looking at it with both eyes. It came very close. At a given moment, I could not see with both eyes any longer, and I shifted the view to my left eye, which was level with the ground. The instant I changed the focus, I also felt that I had straightened my body to a fully vertical position. Now I was looking at an unbelievably enormous animal. It was brilliantly black. It was brilliantly black body to a full okay, brilliantly black. Okay, its front was covered with long black insidious hair, which looked like spikes coming through the cracks of some slick, shiny scales. The hair was actually arranged in tufts. Its body was massive, thick, and round. Its wings were wide and and short in comparison to the length of its body. It had two white, bulging eyes and a long muzzle. This time it looked more like an alligator. It seemed to have long ears, or perhaps horns, and it was drooling. I strained myself to fix my gaze on it, and then became fully aware that I could not look at it in the face. I had a strange thought. Looking at the guardian's body, I felt that every single part of it was independently alive, as the eyes of man are alive. I realized that for the first time in my life that the eyes were the only part of a man that could show to me whether or not he was alive. The guardian, on the other hand, had a million eyes. I
Ah,
thought this was a
I want to just go over
remarkable.
this here. Beena, 1 second. I'm trying to make a point
Yes,
here, right? Uh, we're about
yes.
the inadvertent perpetuation of default misogyny, right? And when he said, I had a strange thought looking at the guardian's body. I felt that
Mm-hmm.
every single part of it was independently alive, as the eyes of people or animals or sentient beings are alive. I realized then for the first time in my life that the eyes were the only part of a person that could show to me whether or not they were alive. Not just a person, but any creature that has eyes, any living creature. Right? But now he's making the point. The guardian, on the other hand, had a million eyes, which is really interesting. In other words, you could see on the arm, the leg, whatever, any part of the guardian that it was alive. Whereas, with creatures, living, animal creatures, if you take the grand category of which humans are a part, things that have eyes, well, eyes that we know of. You can't see whether a fly, a dead fly or a live fly or a bee, you can't see whether they're alive or not, right? So typical animal eyes. But again, it's just that, that he says as the eyes of men are alive, as opposed to the eyes of people are alive. I find this bothersome a bit, that inadvertency. And this is unaware, right? It's not good. And I want to change that language. We've been doing that in the reading, and I just wanted to go over that as a reminder, right? Being it's important, yes, from a Moreness-Culture point of view. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it
All right.
was a remarkable
Let's
find.
see. Hang on 1 second. This is a long way to go, so I think we're going to
Yeah.
leave it here for today, right?
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. Perfect.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Oh, no. Actually, I scrolled past that. Oh, no, no. We nearly finished. Okay, continue. Continue.
I thought this
From
was a
here.
remarkable finding. Before this experience, I had speculated on this smile. No, what is the pronunciation?
Similes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we have an
I,
accent on the E?
yes. Okay. I had speculated on the similes that could describe the distortion that rendered a net as a gigantic beast, and I had thought that a good simile was as if looking at an insect through the magnifying lens of a microscope. But that was not so. Apparently, viewing the guardian was much more complex than looking at a magnified insect. The guardian began to whirl in front of me. At one moment, I stopped and I felt it was looking at me. I noticed that it made no sound. The dance of the guardian was silent. The awesomeness was in its appearance, its bulging eyes, its horrendous mouth, its drooling, its insidious hair, and above all, its incredible size. I watched very closely the way it moved its wings, how it made them vibrant without sound. I watched how it skidded over the ground like a monumental ice skater. Looking at the
Huh.
nightmarish creature in front of me, I actually felt elated. I really believed I had discovered the secret of overpowering it. I thought the guardian was only a moving picture on a silent screen. It could not harm me. It only looked terrifying. The guardian was standing still, facing me.
Assumptions
Suddenly,
again, right, Beena? Assumptions again
yes,
coming in.
yes. Suddenly, it fluttered its wing and turned around. Its back looked like brilliantly colored armor. Its shine was dazzling, but the hue was nauseating. It was my unfavorable color. The guardian remained with its back turned to me for a while and then, fluttering its wing again, skidded out of sight.
All right.
I,
Let me just pause here. I mean,
yes,
we have a very little bit to go.
yes.
All right. Let's just read here to January 19th.
I was confronted with a very strange dilemma. I honestly believe that I had overpowered it by realizing that it presented only a picture of wrath. My belief was perhaps due to Don Juan's insistence that I knew more than I was willing to admit. At any rate, I felt that overcome the guardian and the path was free. Yet I did not know how to proceed. Don Juan had not told me what to do in such a case. I tried to turn and look behind me, but I was unable to move. However, I could see very well over the major part of a 180-degree range in front of my eyes, and what I saw was a cloudy, pale yellow horizon. It seemed gaseous, a sort of lemon hue, uniformly covered all I could, and okay, yes, covered all. All I could see, it seemed that I was on a plateau filled with vapors of
Plateau.
sulfur. Plateau filled with vapors of sulfur. Suddenly, the guardian appeared again at a point on the horizon. It made a wide circle before stopping in front of me. Its mouth was wide open, like a huge cavern. It had no teeth. It vibrated its wing for an instant and then it charged at me. It actually charged at me like a bull, and with its gigantic wings, it at my eyes, swung at my eyes. I screamed with pain and then I flew up, or rather, I felt I had ejected myself up. I went soaring beyond the guardian with pain and then I flew up, or rather, I felt I had ejected myself up. Okay, the guardian. Sorry, I'm just missing the line again. Okay,
You read the same
beyond,
sentence again. And went soaring
yes,
beyond the guardian.
beyond the yellowish plateau into another world, the world of men, person, and I found myself standing in the middle of Don Juan's room.
The world of people, yes. All right, so let's look at this from a conceptuality point of view. And again, attunement. Part of attunement is understanding anomalies. The key to understanding anomalies is really to understand them as the language of the universe. What is the language of the universe? Symbolic language. When you're in a situation when there is no direct language, like the artificiality of English or Urdu or whatever language you're speaking, yeah, you have to rely on symbolism. And the Guardian shows Carlos its back, and its back is Carlos's unfavorable color. If Carlos had the presence of mind to think and is in the habit of interpreting such things symbolically, it would be it's very obvious what the Guardian is telling you. Danger, right?
Yes,
If you're in the practice of anticipating when the Guardian is up there on the horizon, buzzing its wings, getting ready to charge, it's like it's giving you a warning. Now's the time to get out of the way, not when you're actually getting hit already, right? So Carlos is kind of not these habits of perception, these habits of awareness, these habits of action. This is all what Way-Of-Impeccability is about, right? Training yourself so that you can be appropriate and look at the environment. And you're always perceiving your environment. You're always in attunement. In that situation, if you were attuned to the environment, it's kind of obvious what to do. It's a no? I mean, the
yes,
Guardian even gave him a warning. He didn't just charge him right away. He gave him 2
yes,
warnings. Paused on a little hill, fluttering its wings, getting ready. It's like it was being very kind and gentle with Carlos. Huh? Make sense?
yes,
Very interesting. So again, attunement, right? And part of attunement is being attentive and also understanding the language of the world, which is symbolic, figurative, abstract, right? Metaphorical. It's representative, in other words. And it's a lot of it is just kind of it's turning its back on you, showing its unfavorable color, right? Okay, get a clue now, right? And you can even take turning its back to say, go the other way, get out of the way, go away, right? It's just very interesting, very interesting. So again, the power of language of conceptuality is very, 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 very powerful. Super, super powerful. Yeah, makes sense? It assists us in such situations because we have
yes,
an ability to conceive of what's going on. We got some comments from Joseph.
yes,
Brilliant, brilliant. Before we go, in a separate reality, there are still rules. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Conceptuality is exactly this mechanism by which we can perceive rules. that are foreign to us, because there is a commonality. And well, the rules, yeah, the commonality is danger, yeah, obvious, showing you your unpleasant color, giving you a warning, right? So and they're absolutely the rules of appropriateness. And when you understand capital A appropriateness alongside capital A attunement, well, there's no little a attunement. I suppose there is, but now it's all starts to become rather obvious, and it's much easier to perceive those other rules. And that's the point of conceptuality, is that it transcends it transcends this the specificness of rules, right? That's the point of conceptuality. It is taking the abstract that applies in one situation and being able to apply it in a completely different situation. That's the magic. That's the toolbox. That's the awesome, right? It's very, very powerful. Very, very, very powerful. I mean, really, really useful. Yes. All right. Joseph says, in a separate reality, there are still rules in inverted commas. They are somewhat different than the surface world, but they're still there. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And then Joseph goes on to say, reminds me a little like the popular concept of the vampire world rules. Like you can't enter a house unless occupant gives you permission. Yes. And again, that is when you understand things in the greater conception of intent. Yes. There's an implied intent to your house and the threshold, right? And that implied intent is also actual, because when you get into your house, you set it up, you make it safe, you make it secure as much as you can, right? And even though you leave the window open, your intent is still that this house is yours and private, and anybody coming in there is unwanted, and it's basically against your rules that you've set up, right? Your rules of intent. So this is very, very important. And when we start to see the universality of conceptuality, it shifts everything. It shifts absolutely everything, right? And if you get into vampire culture, right? At least from a literary point of view, at least in writing, yes. And the rules of magic, there are tons of forums and discussions on this and the nuances. For instance, like this in the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, he goes into this quite a bit, right? For instance, like with the vampire, because vampires are involved in there quite a bit, and the vampire can come into his house because it's a temporary abode, or he's new to the house and he hasn't had time to really set up the boundaries yet. It's not really my house. So the border, the threshold was a bit more porous than his own house was, right? So again, when you understand this in the context of intent, it makes sense. Well, it's not really my house. I don't have the same expectation of privacy as I do in my own house, right? Or even though it's a rented house that I've been there for a long time, which I've got real legitimate claim to. Well, I'm just borrowing this house, so it's not really mine. See, when you understand it by intent, it all makes sense. Understanding intent is absolutely critical and crucial. It is a prime conception. Prime. Very, very important. Very powerful. Make sense, Beena?
Yes. Yes.
I think it's very helpful. I mean, very, very helpful. When you look at things from that point of view, it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. And when we understand intent, everything comes. And Don Juan will talk about this later too. Yeah, again, we are taking what Don Juan has shared and taking it further, deeper, through language of conceptionality, right? And even impeccability, way of impeccability, it's taking that as a way of living, taking it deeper, taking it further. But the language of conceptionality is really what makes all the difference. It's a profound, very, very cool. Yeah, so when we see the rules of intent, very different thing, right? And the rules of respect, the rules of responsibility, etc., right? Due respect, which is inherent in understanding impeccability, best use of energy, etc., etc. In the world of intent, if something attacks you, they are giving you energy. And if you understand that, now they're making themselves vulnerable by this unjustified attack, right? Because in an energetic way, they have to extend that energy, which is kind of not using their energy. And if you utilize that properly, they're weakening themselves by putting that energy out there, right? It's from a pure energy point of view. So the universe says, no, if you want to go attack, well, this is foolish, because you just going to make yourself very vulnerable and foolish. And if somebody doesn't want to be attacked, well, then you're going to get smacked. You don't really have this ability, right? So it's a very different scenario when it's pure energy, right? In our physical world, it's kind of different. But also, when you understand that we live in a world where our intent has set up a world where we believe in vulnerability, and therefore we are. Yeah. So it all bigger picture. Got to look at the total bigger picture. Very cool, very cool. Thank you, Joseph. Very nice to see you again, mate. We haven't seen for a while. It seems like a long time. It was only 2 or 3 days, but anyway, very cool, very cool. Beena, any closing thoughts?
Yes. Okay. Like always, for me, it's wonderful show because not only that it you call it knuckleheadedness, but for me, Carlos was really in his conventional way of learning things. He's just doing that. And also, you made a huge that really emphasized on the power of intent. That he was not understanding the power of concept, clarity of concept, and he's not understanding the power of intent. And this is what, at some point, Joseph asked that, okay, in which language do you see dreams, or what language you speak in dreams? The language of intent.
Yeah.
That actually is language of awareness, and this is exactly what the lucid or no, sorry, what the little smoke is actually providing you. You can speak and understand the language of intent, the power of intent, and the clarity of intent. So this is something very powerful. It is sitting down, so thank you so much everyone for joining us, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you, Syl, for sharing, and thank you, Joseph, and we will see you guys tomorrow. But before I go, like always, please do pay attention to, if by chance you found this value and you see that, okay, oh, it is valuable for me, any value, by, so just emphasize this value to maximize the benefits of that. And you can do this by just emphasizing on it, and the mechanism to make emphasis really obvious for the algorithm is to clicking like and subscribe to channel, and also hit the notification bell, and also leave a comment. So then you don't need to pay again and again and again pay attention to and try to search this thing. By doing so, you are going to train your online algorithm to bring such value in your life, which is going to be ultimately affect your life algorithm. They are actually same. So thank you so much for joining us. Syl, you want to say something?
No, I'm all good. I'm all good. But
Okay.
again, like I
Thank you.
said,
Thank you so much.
marvelous. You know, a lot of what we shared was very profound today. Very big deal. Very
Yes.
life changing
Yes.
to me anyway.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right.
Okay.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful.
See you
Yes, we'll
guys
end it
tomorrow.
here for today.